Pope Francis, in recent weeks, I have had the pleasure of accompanying students who are attending universities in the central United States and in Canada. You have described the importance of listening not just with our ears, but with our hearts. These students listened to each other, and very quickly a frustration surfaced. We are listening, but who is listening to us? When this group met with students in Brazil, another encounter began, and more shared anxiety and frustration. Young people are struggling to maintain hope. They see and experience the ravages of economic systems that treat human beings as disposable. Those same systems incentivize the exploitation of natural resources. The earth, meant to support us all, is itself crying out for liberation. Nonetheless, these students from Brazil and the central United States and Canada seek hope. They nurture hope together. It is my pleasure to introduce Priscilla, Jefferson, Henry, and Emily.
Holy Father, thank you for this encounter. My name is Henry Glenn, and I represent Creighton University, a Jesuit school in the United States. To prepare, our group dug to migration's root causes, and there found the issue that profoundly worries our generation: climate change. The climate crisis is an extraordinary threat to humanity and the earth. The United Nations estimates climate change displaces 20 million people annually, and researchers at Cornell University warn there could be 1.4 billion climate refugees by 2060 and 2 billion by 2100. Climate change drives migration across the globe. Some members of our group are themselves immigrants. This summer, I lived and worked in Tanzania, and when an unseasonable frost killed my host family's entire tomato crop, I was again convicted by how directly climate change affects the global poor. Catholic teaching can inspire action. The Church has tremendous capacity and responsibility to act through its people, money, infrastructure, land, schools, and advocacy networks. However, our synodal group discerned a shared frustration. U.S. Catholic leaders have not prioritized church teachings about climate change and have not taken commensurate action. Last year, my co-presenter co-authored a study on Laudato Si. In more than 12,000 columns written by U.S. bishops and diocesan newspapers, less than 1% mentioned climate change. No U.S. diocese has committed to carbon neutrality, and few parishes use clean energy. In our experiences, priests never discuss climate change. Our generation values authenticity and deplores hypocrisy. U.S. Catholic leaders' failure to share and enact the Church's own climate teachings is disillusioning young people. And our political leaders' similar failure to take climate action sows doubt and cynicism among us.
My name is Emily Burke. I'm also from the United States. I'm a PhD student at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. In response to inaction and in the spirit of synodality, our group discerned a strategy that is relatively new for climate change, but celebrated across history. And this is Christian nonviolent direct action. Pope Francis, in your 2017 World Day of Peace message titled Nonviolence, a Style of Politics for Peace, you applauded the active nonviolence of Mahatma Gandhi and Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. Here in the US, we also honor Reverend James Lawson and Creighton University Jesuit Father John Marcoux for their nonviolent civil rights activism. Reverend King stressed that work for justice begins with negotiations seeking conversion. When appeals are ignored, he demonstrated that Christian love necessitates active nonviolence. Reverend Lawson emphasized the need for discipline and training in the proven techniques of nonviolent direct action. This can't happen spontaneously, he said. It has to be done systematically. So given the failure of leaders to sufficiently address the climate crisis, our group proposes establishing centers to holistically train people in the spirituality and ethics of ecological conversion, skills of negotiation, and strategies of nonviolent direct action. These centers would empower people, especially young people, to meet with bishops, legislators, and private sector leaders, and more effectively appeal for science-based climate action. In the legacy of Gandhi, Marcoux, Lawson, and King, however, these centers would also prepare us to organize for principled nonviolent direct action if our appeals are ignored. Inaction perpetuates unjust violence on our common home. We have a rapidly closing window to avoid climate catastrophe that will forcibly displace millions, especially the marginalized, as climate refugees. Out of love, we feel that we must be trained to respond with the admired tradition of active nonviolence. Pope Francis, in your 2017 World Day of Peace message, you implored the world to, quote, make nonviolence our way of life. As young people eager to respond to your admonition, how do you advise that we make active nonviolence our way of life as we work to address the climate crisis?
Tanto Priscilla como Jefferson hicieron una presentación de la violencia dura.
And so you are talking about the condemnation of violence by building non-violent attitudes. And this is the greatest challenge that we expect from you. So to give up clearly, to renounce to violence, as Priscilla said, with the concrete actions. And remember that, there are people who defended their land, who were really oppressed by violence, were destroyed by violence. But you propose the way of non-violence. You propose a union with harmony, with nature, because violence always destroys nature. Violence never constructs, it always destroys. We see no dictatorship, military, non-military dictatorship. They always impose themselves with destruction. No violence, on the contrary, leaves a room to others, even when they think in a different way. But it is based on dialogue and respect. We need the prophecy of non-violence. And you are the ones who have to bring ahead this prophecy. It is much easier to hit someone or to insult someone instead of just looking on the other side or offer the other side of our face. When Mahatma Gandhi began with a campaign of non-violence, he was ridiculized, he was persecuted when he began to disturb others. But this way brought to the independence of a nation. Non-violence needs the strength of goodness, it is an attitude that comes from the first tender gesture of a mother towards a child. I want to emphasize also an element of faith. How is God? God has three qualities. God is close, God is merciful, and He's tender. The tenderness of God is important, because someone could think that God is not tender. That is not our Christian God. Our God gets closer to us with tenderness and compassion. So getting back to the violent systems, thank you, Priscilla, for being so concrete in explaining the concept of violence. So we must act in such a way that people do not have the desire to migrate. They should be willing to remain in their land, in dialogue with nature. They should remain in this good life, as the local languages say. So a good life in harmony between the persons and nature. A good life doesn't mean to lead a good life. It is not to have fun. A good life is a life in harmony, because where there is violence, there is no life. And also still talking about non-violence, this is the way that brings us to sincerity. We have to refuse any forms of hypocrisy. And I say this as a brother, as a father, as a grandfather, as a friend. Please don't enter the game of hypocrisy. Don't fall into the trap of hypocrisy. Never in your life. Because hypocrisy empoisons everything. You begin with a little lie and eventually you can end very badly. Without sincerity, you cannot live. Sincerity brings you ahead. Sincerity really helps you to live in harmony with ecology, with the rest of the world, helps you to live a good life in harmony with the world. So, because to maltreat the creation, as we can all see, this is something we always see around us. There is a Spanish proverb that says, God forgives always, we forgive sometimes, nature never forgives. If we destroy nature, then we create a chain of violence, and we can see that under our own eyes. And you both said very beautiful things. So these discourse of violence, especially in dictatorship, when people are exploited, where a good life is taken away from them, this is sin. You spoke about violence against the creation. I met the fishermen who said they captured 3 tons of plastic material. This is violence against creation. So non-violence means to follow the way of sincerity. This is the real change, the real revolution, and the real liberation. Thank you, Jefferson. Thank you, Priscilla. Thank you to all of you, students.
Thank you, Holy Father. We appreciate your time and words of wisdom and deep experience. It is now my pleasure to introduce another colleague, Dr. Michael Murphy.
The South American and USA Canada East groups bring similar questions, concerns, and concrete ideas to a complex world made all the more challenging by global pandemic. We met our match with our South American friends as they were similarly focused, both on discernment and on the constructive relationship among prayer, imagination, and concrete action. It is a true gift to work with these students. Here are our representatives: Eric Bazail Emil, Ana Ruiz, Santiago Varela, and Denise Rodriguez. And so now let's hear from our 4, these North-South bridge builders selected by their peers.
Thank you, Dr. Murphy. Buenos días, Santo Padre. Me llamo Bazail Emil. Soy estudiante de tercer año en la universidad. We students are eager to use our skills and energy to contribute to solutions to these and other injustices. For example, Brother Francis, we know that the dignity of migrants and social friendship are issues that are close to your heart. Too many Christians, including our pastors and bishops, seem unable to connect our tradition's long histories of hospitality to the contemporary realities of migrants and refugees arriving in our communities in search of safety, opportunity, and the full life God desires for all creation.
Hola, Santo Padre. Me llamo Ana Ruiz y soy estudiante de Georgetown. Our dear Pope Francis, we are nothing if not filled with hope. We welcome opportunities for dialogue with our brother bishops, and we are heartened by those who make connection their top priority. But we also see around us that many of our pastors are not close to their flocks. They cannot draw strength from the witness of the faithful, and they are unable to teach others about the demands our faith makes for our work in the world. We need your advice and your help to call our bishops and bishops representing other groups here today to meet ad limina for a listening session facilitated by women and men who are active in struggles for ecological justice, solidarity economies, and dignified migration and refugee care and resettlement. We are hopeful to empower these struggles by inviting our pastors and bishops to learn from their people and to model service for the poor and marginalized of our societies. Holy Father, I want to conclude with some questions, as St. John Henry Newman would put it, from our heart to yours. In our continued discernment, how do we promote participation and friendship between all members of our societies? How do we support concrete local initiatives while building bridges of solidarity between different cultural and linguistic contexts? What advice do you have for us to work together as a church in our context? Gracias.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Santiago. I'm from Argentina, like the Holy Father. First of all, Holy Father, thank you for this meeting today, and we ask you to continue to fight for those who are forgotten, for those who are without voice. The Mother Earth is exploited, and the poor are the first who advocate for defending the land, but they are the first to be ignored. They are forced to migrate with the hope for a better future, with the hope to find a job abroad. We have the duty to create a juster world than the one we received, in order to find solutions to the problem of inequality, the concentration of wealth, and foreign debt. Holy Father, our question is, what is the way we should follow, we young South American people, to respond to the problems that we are facing, and what concrete actions we can implement? Thank you very much. Thank you for these many things you tell me. It is good to hear these things because the mission of university students, as in your case, is to leave a world that is a better state than the one in which you live. This is the exam of consciousness that we all should do, starting from within, not from outside. But no, we have to change from inside. And many people will say, oh, but you're young, you're an idealist, you will change. No, don't accept it. Don't negotiate your solidity. You have to put yourself at stake, because in this way your heart can change and you can grow. You have to play the game. And then there is another thing that really impressed me. I refer to the way of speaking to the authority of the church, the leaders of the church, for example, on ecological issues. Somebody said that these ecological issues were never mentioned, that in the homilies in the church you never hear about these issues. Because I think the church as a whole did not take charge of the ecological issue in a serious way yet. And the church very often doesn't take charge about talking about many issues, actually. There are pastors who unfortunately are not close to their flock. So either you are a priest, a real pastor, or otherwise you're just a member of the establishment. And then you're not a priest. Priests must be close to their flock. This is the style of God. The style of God is proximity. Is closeness with mercy and tenderness. I always ask the pastors to follow the gospel, read the gospel, do like God, be close to your people. Because pastors must be in front of their people in order to indicate the way, and they're in the middle, must be in the middle of the people to feel the smell of their people and to know the concern of their people, and must be behind them to take care about those who are getting lost. So thank you for facing this topic and spoken about the importance of preaching ecology. Tell them, we want to be close to you, we need to be with you, and we pastors, we need to be with our people. We both need one another. I need you and you need me. Santiago, for example, he mentioned the overpopulation of the big cities because of rural migration, who are often, these people are alone, they don't have people of reference, very often they don't have the minimum to survive. These people often live in extreme poverty, like in these favela, in these slums around the city. These people, in their own land, they were very well, they lived well, they had a house, they had something to eat. Now they live very badly. They live as miserable because of this forced migration. So always remember that the leading thread of all this way is hope. Hope does not deceive. If it is a true hope, it does not deceive, because hope makes you go ahead. It pushes you ahead. You know, maybe you don't realize it, but this is the case. So thank you for your commitment. Thank you for what you said. You know, I will make an effort in order to be closer to people and serve you in the best possible way. Thank you.
But I do want to echo Anna when we say cor ad cor loquitur, heart to heart, Holy Father, we thank you. Now it's my pleasure and my privilege to introduce my friend, Dr. Felipe Legarreta.
Yes, thank you so much, Michael. Thank you, Santo Padre Francisco. Muchísimas gracias por invitar a estos.
Thank you, Francis. Thank you very much for inviting these young university students to the Synodal meeting. Thank you for reminding the importance of hope. So they want to take part in the mission of the people of God as agents of reconciliation. Mexico. I invite Maria Jose, Gabriela Rubi, Alejas Stokeluna, and Kerry Souza.
Political instability in the United States almost jeopardized my dream of completing my education at Loyola. In 2020, government left me and thousands of other international students with uncertainty, not knowing if we were going to be deported. My story is the same as many others. There is a lot of frustration with the increasingly toxic narrative that surrounds immigrants and displaced people. We are often described with dehumanizing language. We aren't rapers, murderers, drug addicts, drug dealers. We are dreamers, hard workers, people who offer the best to this or any country. We are hopeful by working together as students we can build bridges that should have already been constructed. We want to be part of the love that provides directions, encouragement, and support for others to achieve a good life. So I ask you, would you be the connection of the continent of hope? ¿Podemos hacer lío juntos?
Buenas tardes, Santo Padre. Mi nombre es Katie Sosa y estoy representando la Universidad de Regis. This brings us into our unity of mind and heart. We aren't separate groups of people. We're all human and deserve to be heard with no judgment. We ask for union among those who have high influence. We ask for priests and public figures, artists, to correct and broaden the discourse, to highlight that my people aren't to be feared. They are to be heard, understood, and helped. You have issued a challenge. Do not be afraid. Do not yield to fear. Many leaders and many institutions respond with fear and close the door on the stranger who seeks shelter, the sons and daughters of our Lord, those who have died with their rosaries in hand. We ask that you help us change these systems and lead the church to be an institution with open doors. Will you walk with us as we express the power of the Spirit and help those who lost their strength trying to grasp onto a lost dream? Thank you.
Holy Father, I invite you to respond to these concerns of these young people who shared with you their dreams and their vision. You really hit the target. It is something universal. Quoting Matthew 25, I was hungry and you fed me. I was alone and you welcomed me. This is the protocol, a protocol to adopt for everything. Thank you for mentioning these words. These are rules to follow every day. And the fact migrants are always stigmatized. That migrant was exploited, is a victim of inequalities and physical art violence as well as psychological violence. So this fact of taking away the stigma from the migrant, this is an important point. It is a proposal of a pilgrim church that is not static, because a static church is a museum church. A synodal church instead should not be a closed church. So this is the house of God. It is where people feed you, where people take care of you. The real church of Jesus Christ. And what do we expect from university students? That they commit themselves, that they show their face, that they are the consciousness. It's very good what you say. I assure you that what you told me was very good to me. And I get out of here being different than the way I came in. So you can change others because your words give us hope and to continue this process. The meeting with you gives us a possibility to build bridges now and in the future. So thank you.
This dialogue, Building Bridges North-South, was just the beginning. It launches the Building Bridges initiative, which has a distinct purpose. It will continue to nurture these student groups as they pursue their projects together. In cooperation with our friends in these Vatican offices and with partnering universities across the world, we will create more connections and in new directions. The Building Bridges initiative exists to study, promote, and facilitate synodality as a concrete mode of collaboration across all borders.